Good afternoon, good Friday. Hello and welcome to our webinar demo on our Emergy's Accelerated Enterprise Solution for Wholesale and Distribution. My name is Ivan Rayo and I'm with Marketing at Emergy's. I'll be your host and moderator for today's event. Today we're going to give you a glimpse of our Emergy's Accelerated Enterprise Solution for the wholesale and distribution industry. We'll briefly show the benefits of our solution targeted this market segment. Now I would like to introduce our speaker, Mark Huseman, Solution Engineering Director here at Emergy's. Mark has spent the last 20 years in the software business, with the last 10 focused on SAP. In this 20 years, Mark has dealt with hundreds of prospects and customers in the manufacturing, wholesale, and services industries. Before moving to the software world, Mark spent about 5 years working in a high-volume, multi-facet HVAC, automotive, and life sciences production facility, with discrete process, repetitive, and project manufacturing initiatives in place. Mark also spent about 5 years working on an anti-submarine warfare testing government project directly out of college. So before I turn the session over to Mark, I would also like to mention that the whole session will be recorded and everyone will receive a copy of this webinar. And since this is a brief webinar, we would appreciate if you could submit your questions to me, Ivan. And if time permits, we will go over them at the end of this session. Otherwise, we will definitely email our responses back to you. As always, we expect you'll find today's session, even though brief, valuable, and useful to your organization. I will now turn control over to Mark, who will provide you a glimpse of our Emergy's AES solution.
Thank you, Ivan. As you say, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening from and watching from. And I'm going to jump right in because you don't need any more intro than I think Ivan gave you. So we're going to really stay focused on, what Emergys's offer is around wholesale distribution, and we're going to walk through this simple agenda. Just a quick slide about who SAP is, and I think 2 or 3 about Emergys, just to see how we fit in the ecosystem. I'll explain the demo a little bit, then we'll jump right in. And at the end, I'll give you a little summary of what the offering is in more detail. So that's the plan. From an SAP perspective, it's important to really note that most of SAP's customer base is in the small to mid-enterprise market, down at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's really the focus point for where Emergys plays in the market. Almost all of our customer base, and we've got over 220 successful implementations, almost all of them live in the golden portion of the triangle at the bottom. We do have a couple that started there and have moved up the pyramid, but most of our business is in the bottom. And that's really one of the 2 takeaways. The other real takeaway here is that the investment in the future that SAP makes, you see down on the right, $2.5 billion in R&D annually, is more than most of our competitors even make in a year, and that's what's going back into the product every year at SAP. So that's just a little bit about SAP, and then a little bit about Emergys as a partner. Most of our business is SAP. There's a little part that's IBM, but almost everything is SAP. We've been working with SAP for over 17 years. I've already told you about the successful implementations. We are located globally, so Mexico, Canada, the United States, India, and China. I hope I didn't repeat anybody twice there. I usually do. So we are able, because of that, we're able to offer 24/7 around-the-clock communication for issues and support in a follow-the-sun type environment. Very certified staff. If you look at the average, it's about 10 years with our consulting group. So they are experienced, and they are very knowledgeable and stay knowledgeable through the SAP certification program. So that gives you a brief idea. We do have verticalized solutions around wholesale distribution, around manufacturing, and around the service industries. We're also a certified center of excellence with SAP, so we can do the full gamut from selling the software to implementing it to supporting it. And when we look at what's going on from a wholesale distribution perspective, really high level, the offering includes functionality around financial accounting, warehouse management, sales and distribution, obviously, materials management, transportation, a little bit of service, at least as much service to allow you to do plant maintenance within your own facility. There's more available, but it's basically that in this environment. And then the business intelligence suite of products. And we'll talk about that a little bit later about what we deliver at Go Live. So it's not a phase 2, phase 3. When you go live, you have actionable reporting in the business intelligence environment. And all this functionality sits on a technical platform of HANA, which is a high-performance piece of equipment with a very high-performance database. So we can do a lot more, a lot faster, and a lot more efficiently than we've ever been able to do before. Emergis also has the opportunity to offer you the best of both worlds. One, from the SAP perspective, we've got the best-of-breed software solution, which is very scalable and can handle any complexity that your company can throw at it. And on the other side, we can offer you multiple deployment methods where it can all be in the cloud. It can be managed by us or you, and we'll do as much as you need us to or as much as you want us to. And we're very flexible, so we can even do hybrids where maybe production's in the cloud, but your test environments on-premise or in a potentially less expensive cloud solution than where your production might be living. It's not as critical, typically, the test environment. So there's a lot of options and capabilities here that Emergis offers our customer environment that are somewhat unique to us. We also have an in-house lending arm, if you will, so we have the ability to do a 60-month process instead of you having the full initial capital outlay at the beginning. So we can go from a CapEx, a typical CapEx, capital expenditure environment, into an operational expense or expenditure environment. So really the demo agenda, if you will, says a little bit about SAP, a little bit about Emergis. From the demo agenda specifically, we're going to focus on two different things that through the same demo path, if you will. And really what I want you to see is that there's capabilities for providing you as a user insight that you can then take action from, so actionable insight. And SAP is very much a manage by exception tool. So it's designed to show you where there's issues so you can then go resolve the issues. So instead of looking for them and searching and looking at every piece of data, every sales order, every purchase order, you have the ability with SAP to have the sales orders, purchase orders, whatever that object is, with the issues put at the top of the list. So you're not focused on everything, even if it's fine. You're focused on where the issues are so you can resolve them. So that's really where we're going here. And we're going to look at it from a tactical perspective as well as a strategic perspective in the product through a day in the life environment. And this is potentially a simplistic day in the life process, but it does cover a lot of different functional areas, a lot of different departments and different scenarios, if you will. So from the sales side into planning and material requirements and matching the supply to the demand that came in, being able to go out and procure and bring stock in-house, all the way through the payables, so tightly integrated with financials. And then, you know, the going back out the door for the delivery processing, along with all the necessary paperwork. And finally, the billing process that will drive. So from an operational perspective, this kind of view kind of represents the gamut of what's happening in-house and how the procurement side feeds accounts payable and the outgoing side, the customer side, sales side, feeds accounts receivable. So because obviously there's a whole, for lack of a better word, financial side to this for the accountants to manage as well. And we're really just going to talk about the feeders at this point. And the idea is that we're going to start through this process and jump around a little bit to give you a flavor. And we're going to do it from two levels again. One is the actionable insight to action perspective, which to me is more strategic. And then there's going to be the tactical level of just putting an order in, which is all I do is put the order in, versus all I do is put the purchase orders in, much more tactical environments. So you'll see a little bit of both that SAP can offer. And we're going to walk through the red dashed object is kind of going to give us a roadmap of where we are. So hopefully in this short time span, I don't lose anybody. So with that in mind, we're going to start off at a strategic level in a, if you will, a cockpit view for someone who's managing sales order issues. And to give you an idea of that, we're actually going to go in and look at fulfillment issues within the distribution channel. So you see we've got 337 issues in orders, one from a supply perspective, 100 in the delivery environment, and another 20 in the invoicing area. Have the ability to sort this list in different manners. We have the ability to go down, and again, these are all the issues. So we now have insight into where the issues are, and we want to drill down and take action. So we're actually drilling into one of those issues. This specific issue is a back order, so it's line 20 or item 20, and inventory wasn't availability. So we were originally able to satisfy line 10. Line 20 went on back order, inventory is available, so the system shows us that, hey, inventory is available, you can go ahead and deliver this now. So we create the delivery, and it moves down the process. So now it's ready for a post-goods issue, which you see it down at the bottom in the blue. And it's moved from one area in that list of issues into another to be processed. Now you can sit there and think, okay, well, you showed me sales orders and supply, delivery, and invoices, and those are different people. And that's fine. That roadmap, each one of those could be a different role to a different screen to a different person. So it can be someone that wears multiple hats managing the entire gamut. It can be individuals managing their piece. So that's a little bit of a view of insight to action versus more of a tactical perspective where I'm just going to come in and create a sales order. So this potentially is just a clerk entering sales orders. So they come in, they identify who the customer is at the top, they can search for a product, pick product from the list, identify it, add it to the cart, and now we're right into that going out on the internet and buying stuff. So much more familiar to people than traditional interfaces. Go ahead and check out if I don't want to change the quantity or the date. I get another opportunity to change it here if I want to. And I can also see if there's a back order issue or not at that point. Enter my purchase order information or tracking ID familiar to me. I get one last chance to review. You can see taxes taking place now as well. And when I place the order, I get a confirmation that the order's been created. And within SAP at this point in time, this could have triggered an email with a PDF attached sending me the information about my order. It could have done an EDI transaction to provide that confirmation. It could have sent something by fax to do that. It could have told me to print it out and mail it the old-fashioned snail mail method. So options, basically you set those options up based on who the customer is, and that's the way the system will handle it from there forward until you make a change. So again, the strategic method and then a specific method of tactical taking an order. And if we drill in, this is the kind of output that could have been emailed as a PDF attachment. There is a tool within SAP that allows you to make this look how you want. This is more of a generic, out-of-the-box view. Obviously, as people implement, they change the logo and the address, phone number type information. Some leave it there and let everything else just default the way it is. You can see I have a lot of text describing what my sales unit was. Some people don't do any text. And this text can be here. It can also show up on delivery notes, invoices, up to you. But the tool set is part of SAP, so you don't have to go out there and find a form generator or anything like that. It's already built into the application. So that was just talking about managing demand issues and really looking at putting a sales order in and then the confirmation. And you'll notice that that same type of object shows up here as an MRP report, purchase order confirmation, pick list, delivery note, bill of lading, and so forth. So they are spread all throughout the application. You may have some that you don't see here, and that's okay. I think I have 20 turned on in the system, or activated, if you will, that work in various manners. Some I have to initiate, some initiate automatically. Totally up to me. I can point them where to print, but you also have the ability to have other ones. So I told you I may only have 20 activated. There's probably 200 defined. So if you use a packing slip instead of or along with a delivery note and a bill of lading, that's not a big deal. You activate it, turn it on, maybe change the logo like I talked about and some information, and identify how you want it generated, and you're good to go. Or you take one like a delivery note, which yours may be a little different. You take the standard one and make it your own. So you do have a lot of functionality there around forms. And I'm telling you that now because I really don't intend to drill into all of these. But it is part of the day in the life, and it is an important part because that's what your trading partner is going to see. So now that we've done that, we're going to get into the planning world a little bit and really talk about supply and demand. And now we have demand in, we have to make sure that we have supply to cover it. And you may be buying, in a wholesale distribution environment, we're typically buying ahead. We're forecasting and consuming forecast with the sales orders. So it may not be that you just got the demand and you have to go buy to meet the demand. It may be just that you pre-planned the supply, but you would still go through some of the same methodology regardless of when you got the signal to buy. So we'll go down this path a little bit and talk about planning, and we'll talk about the material requirements planning side. And again, we're going to look at two levels. We're going to start out at the strategic level, where I'm a buyer or a planner and I have uncovered or found an issue where I don't have the inventory to meet the demand that's required, and I don't have it coming in time. So we're going to look at a shortage here and then manage it. And the first thing we're going to do is create a subset or a sub-list of data into a new tile on that beginning cockpit. So what we're going to do is we're going to, this big list here, which could have hundreds of items, we're going to look at a subset of this for 1 month, looking at specific receipts. We're going to look at it for a specific material group, and we're going to create basically a new tile sitting on that cockpit out front that just has these 4. So it's a simple way to create a smaller list, a manageable list potentially, or you have a specific issue you want to solve and you don't want to keep searching through the big list. So we created this simple tile right here that's being circled, and we're good to go. We can now drill in and just manage those 4 issues. And so we know we've got issues, right? This is that insight to action again. We can drill into one of these, and it gives a picture of what the demand is and what the supply is, and then it identifies exactly where the issues are. So you can drill into the issue, and the uniqueness here is down at the bottom. You see the increase, change, procure, and transfer. It's providing me options of how I can solve this shortage issue. It's telling me increase a purchase order amount. change an existing purchase order, go out and create a new purchase order, potentially transfer from another facility. And it's possible to click through these different options and see what the impact is, and pick the one that gives you the best outcome. You can also see that there's a 1 star on the first one and 2 stars on the other 3. 2 stars better than 1 star. It means you're going to solve the problem in a better manner, quicker manner, all the way around. So a 2-star option is always going to be better than a 1 star. So in this case, we selected one of the 2 stars and basically created a new purchase order to manage the shortage. And you see, as soon as we did that, our number of issues went from 4 down to 3. So we resolved the issue. It's off the list. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So again, an insight to action perspective. And these are across the platform. I've shown you one at the sales side. I've now shown you one more at a planner side. They're at the financial side. They're at the sales side, procurement side. You're going to see them across the product. So, but now popping back down into more that tactical, easy for me to say, tactical view of day in the life. It might just be that we would just run MRP, Material Requirements Plan, at the end of the day and then manage messages. Same concept. We're managing by exception and taking action based on the insights that the system's providing. So we're going to jump over to the stock procurement side now and look at purchase requisitions that might have been generated by people or by material requirements planning to match or to meet the demand. We'll look at how that converts into the purchase order and then go from there. So as we jump in and look at the purchase order type activity, we're going to go again into more of a web interface look and feel again. So this one shows me all the purchase recs that are out there, lets me select one or more and assign a supplier. So if you only have one supplier, great. It just does the assignment and you're good to go. If you have multiples, the system will actually show you pricing and delivery terms for them so you can pick the best appropriate one for the situation you have on hand. And you can see across the top that we kind of have the roadmap or the process that's being done here, and you can see that the requisition's moving towards a purchase order as we go here. So you have the ability to combine multiple purchase recs into one purchase order. It can be a one-to-one situation, but in this case it's a one-to-one-to-one. So you actually simulate, you can see that gives you an opportunity if you want to combine and everything else. So simple process to take one or more requisitions and create a purchase order. Okay, and the next step might be that there might have been 2 steps added in there. That purchase requisition might have required approval. You might not do it at the purchase requisition level, you might do it at the purchase order level. So SAP allows for all of that to occur, and you can have an approval cycle here and another one here, or one here, none here, or vice versa. And those approval levels, the approval levels can be multi-level. SAP offers you a little more than just a dollar value method. It can be the type of PO. It can be who generated the PO. It could be any other characteristic that drives it into a specific approval pathway. So you can have one or more people approve at a level. You can have multiple people assigned for approval, but as soon as one of those people does it, it drops off the list for everybody. You can have approvals pop out of the SAP system into Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Exchange, where you can actually do the approval there. Or you can click on the link that's sent to you in the approval email, and it'll take you right into the application. Obviously, you'd have to sign on if you're not signed on, so you still have security. And it would take you right to where the approval needs to take place. And I know we're only talking approval at the purchase level, but you can have approvals lots of different places in the application. So it can be at the sales order, it could be drawings. There's a whole document management perspective here within SAP. So you have a lot of capability around approval cycles and what requires approval in SAP. Like I said, this form is going to look a lot like the sales order, so I'm not going to jump there. We're going to actually move forward a little bit and jump out. I seem like I'm moving really fast, so I'm going to try and slow down a little bit. My intent was never to go through the entire thing. I can. It's all built to go through everything and show all the different steps. Typically, I don't have the time to do that in an hour. I do have time to do that in a general demo, though, so this does allow me to execute the entire demo. Just touch base a little bit. So we talked about this up front and what's included from a high level. We're going to get into a little more detail in each of these, as well as look at some of the delivered report functionality. But if you start to wonder or look or ask about, why Emergis's AES solution for wholesale distribution, one system that can cover your entire solution set, allows you to really consolidate systems, gives you better visibility so you can fuel growth. If your growth is fueled, your profitability is probably going to increase. It should. Your cash flow should increase because you have a better management tool to look at days sales outstanding, days payables outstanding, and so forth. You're going to have a better customer experience within the application, user experience. Your customers are going to be more delighted working with you because you've got a better handle on things, you've got a better visibility to things, you can answer their questions quicker or provide them availability to the answers before they know they have the question. Your shortages go down, your back orders go down, on and on. So it's really providing a management tool to help you do all these different things. And it would be quickly noticeable outside of your business. This gives you a little view of what's included. So it's the SAP footprint. That's what the ECC 6.0 is, sitting on top of the HANA appliance. So I talked about the high-end piece of hardware with the high-end database on it. Implementations packaged in there, all the services to get you up and running live. We offer hosting. We offer account managed support capability. And then some of the key things we deliver, maybe a little differently than others, is the business intelligence and analytics that I'll get to in a minute. And that's the 20 pre-configured reports as part of that. We provide a simple, even simpler user interface than what I just showed you. It, along with what I've been showing you, is designed for mobile. So you can go to smart tablet, smartphone level. You've seen Fiori. That's really the front end that I've been in, the user interface, if you will. Last 3 implementations have been 90 days, so 12 to 14-week implementation up and running on the footprint that we've been talking about here. We packaged online training, and it's on demand. So as we're getting your system up, ready, running, up ahead before we even start the implementation, you can actually be working on training to get your staff up to speed and understanding, in some cases, just basics. In some cases, understanding, the same terminology. So we're talking about apples and apples when we start, instead of spending a week or maybe more trying to figure out what each other's saying. So there's a lot of value in that upfront training. That's not the only time we train, but that's kind of the on-demand portion of the training where you can take it. There's certification tests. There's different levels for novice, journeyman, expert. So if you think about it, SAP is such an integrated system. doesn't matter where I work, I'm going to impact other portions of the business. And within SAP, that's especially true. So we like to think that everybody is going to go through the novice side so they understand their impact on everybody else. And then depending on what I do in my portion of the business, I'm going to end up doing the journeyman and or the expert version as well. And then the 70+ industry proven best practice procedures. So think of those as scenarios. And we're going to look at that in a little more detail, but think of that as a functional footprint that we're going to roll out for you specifically. There's over 600 different scenarios that we can package up and deliver. Some of those are very industry specific, some are not. The feature is that we can look at just wholesale distribution here, but you might come back and say, hey, you know what? I'd really love to implement digital signatures within my application for approvals and things like that. Well, digital signatures was developed by SAP, but it was developed for the Food and Drug Administration, so a different vertical. But we have the ability to take that functionality and bring it right over and put it on top of any of the other verticals. So we can give you that functionality it's already designed. It just has to be added to your footprint. So there's some features and options there about getting that. Emergis wraps all this in and can quickly determine, a per seat, per user, per month price, and we can do that with or without. Really that starts to lean toward the financing option I talked about before, but it's easier to, it may be easier to justify at that perspective than it is with the CapEx, but at least you know what we're talking about. And it's a simple calculation for us to perform to give you that level of detail. So when we look at the specific types of scenarios, they're broken down here a little bit: quote to cash, the procurement side, some of the enterprise management support, and then there's more. But this starts to give you a flavor for the different types of scenarios that we would typically see exposed in a wholesale distribution company. It doesn't mean that any one wholesale distribution company would do all these. Like I said, there might be 100 here where we might only roll out 70, 75. But the feature is that they're available, so you can think of it as the menu, if you will, of what I'm going to choose from to enhance my business by going to SAP. And then the next one, do I have two of the same one? I may have doubled up there. The quote to cash, like I talked about before, service management, there's a lot more functionality in SAP. It could just be the maintenance side. It could be that you're procuring external services. And then you get the whole procurement side of the house here, including some kitting functionality in case you need the kit. Okay? And then finally, the important stuff for a lot of people is the financials. Financials, cost controlling. There are a lot of reports delivered just within core SAP without doing the any business intelligence on top of it. In the neighborhood of about 6,000 reports throughout the product. And each one of these, so if I looked at General Ledger and looked at the procedure for this, the scenario for this that we deliver out of the box, the idea is that these have all been created by SAP based on their knowledge of what we've deployed in wholesale distribution companies over the last 40-some years. So they're tried and true, and they're across the customer footprint. So they should be a pretty good fit for anybody who's doing wholesale distribution. Everybody's got some uniqueness. So the idea is that we start with this footprint and work you through it so you understand it, and then come back and find out the uniqueness for your company. And that's where we make configuration changes, not code changes, configuration changes in the code to fit the business exactly. So it's a much quick, that's how we can get you live in 90 days. It's a much quicker implementation than starting with a blank slate and saying, how do you want this to work? we can come and say, this is best in industry functionality and deployment. What makes you different, and let's focus on that. So from the pre-configured reports and business intelligence that we deliver on top, and I talked about this a little bit, this is functionally ready at go live. So you're already using business intelligence on top of what's available within SAP. And there's about 25 reports here. You see they're across the product mix, the departmental mix, if you will. And we'll also see some dashboards in a couple minutes. So, and I do have some representative examples of some of these, just so you get an idea. It's not the report of old where you just have a bunch of data. You can embed graphics in the reports, simple tools to use. They're all, regardless of the BI tool within SAP, they're looking against the same data set. There's just different tools to give you different user functionality in the tools. But these are crystal report tools here. So this is accounts payable open item list. A little different list around sales, but it also gives you a view of a pie chart instead of a bar graph, right? So there's a little bit of that going on here. Now we've got a line graph, looking at customer fact sheet, looking at their sales this year versus last year, getting some visibility into their last 5 orders, last 5 deliveries, last 5 credit memos, last 5 invoices, the whole bit, all in one point. And the idea here is that if I'm going to go visit this customer, here's a primer on where we are today and what we've done recently with this customer, so we know what we may be walking into before we leave the building. And then some of the couple dashboard examples. This one's somewhat interactive, where you can look at cost and price and margin in one view and make adjustments. So, you know, what would happen if I found a lower cost supplier? What would the impact be to my margin? So if you were to reduce the cost of direct materials here, in theory, the material overhead would go down as well, and your margin should go up, assuming your price didn't go down. So it gives you the ability to start moving the dials here and see what the impact is. It's also a great tool, so if you have a sales rep who's constantly discounting, you can just open up the tool and show them, okay, so you've been discounting this much, look at the impact that has on our gross margin every time you do that. So a very simple, effective tool to be able to manage those kind of what ifs and do some show and tell. There's a CEO cockpit which has 8 of the most commonly asked for key performance indicators. And at one glance, you can get a pulse of the business. And if you don't want to pick up the phone and call and ask someone about, okay, the lost discounts or why the receivables overdue, you can actually click on the details and drill in and see for yourself before you make the call. So a lot of tools, a lot of information, and in this case, you're pushing it to the C-level. So they don't even necessarily ever get into the SAP application. Not the core, this is part of SAP, right? So I have to be careful how I say this, but they're looking at resultant information pulled out of SAP. So they're not logging on to the application to get it. They're being spoon-fed the information, which I have to say a lot of them like. So that is what I plan to show and tell you throughout the webinar here, and I tried to leave enough time, which I think I did here, to offer the opportunity to answer some questions. And if Ivan, you can look at that and give me some, do we have any questions that have been posed, anything out there that we want to talk through? That'd be great.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Yes, apparently we have here received a couple of questions. So we may just wait here for or a couple of minutes here to see if we receive a couple more. In the meantime, I want to thank you, Mark, for your time, and thank you for this presentation. So just hang on here, please. Okay, we may start reviewing the ones that we already have, Mark. So I have here one question. The first one will be, uh, this person says, I may have missed it, but I didn't hear anything about landed costs. Does SAP have a solution for this?
Yeah, and I guess since I didn't go into the goods receipt, that makes sense that they wouldn't have seen that and I wouldn't have talked about it. So great question. There are parameters that you can set up around parts and vendors to identify how import's going to be managed for landed cost. So when once that information's set up, the basic data is there to actually drive it. And then what we basically do is set up different pricing conditions or costing conditions, however you want to look at that, around the different things like freight and duty and other traditional import costs. And we can actually apply those against the basic cost of the item that's been procured to get a total landed cost of the unit. So it can be weight-based. For freight, typically it's weight or cube-based. Duty could be based on dollar amount. We can also take cost from an aggregate level. So let's say we got a container full. That container full can be that cost for the freight, and the duty can be spread across the products that were in that container. And it can be done after the fact and update the cost at that point. Because let's face it, we don't necessarily get the freight costs at the same time we receive the product, or the duty costs or other import costs. So they can be applied later to update the actual received cost of that specific group of material.
Okay, I think that's understood. Second question we have here, Mark, it's, does SAP have any functionality for kitting?
Yep, and I talked about this just a touch when we were going through the some of the business scenarios. I talked about there's some functionality from a manufacturing perspective, if you will, for kitting. So there's this, basically the footprint of SAP, you have the whole footprint sitting there. It's dependent upon how much you actually want to use. So in a pure wholesale distributor just buying and selling, it wouldn't turn any of the manufacturing functionality on. But if they do have kitting, they'll turn on as much as they need. So they can create bills of material to identify what's going to go in the kit. They can include packaging for that. It could be that they want to group in a display case with the deliverable. And then they can schedule those kind of things. They can execute production orders or the work orders to do that. They can see what the cost is to actually create that kit. So all that functionality is there. It's a matter of activating it to actually use as part of the deployment for the specific company that needs it.
Okay. Third question would be, how does SAP support our need to be able to deliver different package quantities of the same product?
So SAP allows you to identify different units of measure and correlate how those work. So one each, let's say that's the lowest level, but there's 12 eaches in a tray. There's 12 trays in a box, so now you're at 144 eaches. And there's 12 boxes on a pallet or skid. So you can set that information up. Once you've set it up, you can order against any of those units of measure. You can look at inventory at any of those units of measure. So you can look at it in eaches, you can look at it in cases, you can look at it in pallets. So we're basically starting at the lowest level that you're going to do anything in, sell, stock, whatever. And then we're going to go from there to identify, you know, the relationship with the larger volumes that you can sell and stock and so forth. And you also have the ability to have very distinctive pricing too. So if I might sell onesies or one eaches at $10 a piece, but if they buy a tray, maybe they're $9.90 a piece. If they buy a box, they're $9.75 a piece. If they buy a pallet, they're $9.50 a piece. So I can set that kind of information up as well ahead of time, so it's all ready to use, if you will, when you want to exercise and sell.
Okay, Mark. We have here a customer who apparently run multiple promotions during the year. His question is, does SAP have functionality to help us manage this promotion seamlessly?
Yep, so you can define predefined promotions in SAP and identify the packaging, pricing, duration, all those parameters around it, and then execute the promotion. And basically what you're doing is the promotion's identified as you take an order so that it all tracks back. So you're getting consumption against that promotion as well. Because it's one thing to execute the promotion. It's a totally different thing in a lot of companies and a lot of software packages to determine if it was a good promotion. So SAP offers you kind of the closed loop environment where you set it up and you can automatically execute against it. So you get total visibility real time of how you're doing against that promotion at all times. So that kind of information can help you decide if it was priced right, if the duration was right. Maybe you want to extend it because you're not selling as much as you thought or as well as you thought. You might have to change the price a little bit, but the information is available at your fingertips to make those kind of decisions within SAP. No more?
Sorry, Mark, I kind of got lost there. It's the final question we have here. It's apparently I'm gonna read this out loud. Is we work off a forecast from our customers, but I didn't see anything in the webinar. So does SAP handle this?
Sure, and I did mention forecast once, but I definitely didn't show anything. So in wholesale distribution, typically forecast is a big part. So SAP supports forecasts for sure. It actually allows you to distinguish between types of forecasts. So, we were just talking about promotions. You can actually segregate forecasts for that promotion so that you can consume against just that forecast when you're consuming against that promotion. So you can very visibly distinguish different types of forecasts. So I'm being careful here because I've had people that want to set up customer-specific forecasts, and you can do that in SAP, but I would typically have you do that in a slightly different manner. So, and it's still going to show up in the same places. So the easy question is, yes, we support forecasts. The tougher question is we support it in different ways to give you some really good control and really good visibility around the demand and how it's being satisfied and how it's being planned for, which potentially makes robbing Peter to pay Paul a little more noticeable and a little more easy to manage, because everybody does rate their customers. Everybody does have customers that are more valuable than others, whether we want to admit it or not. So making that decision to take product from one to give it to another and possibly short the first one becomes very visible in SAP and much easier to manage, so you can see the total impact of doing that. Instead of getting 8 people in the room to make the decision, you've got the information at your fingertips, and maybe you only have to bring 2 people in the room to get their approval, or send them the right information so they can grant approval online in SAP.
Great, thank you, Mark. So apparently these are all the questions that we've gathered from today's session, Mark. So is there anything else that you would like to add, or any final message to give to our audience?
Just I appreciate the time you took out to listen to me. Sorry for the few coughs there. Appreciate the time. Hope you got some value out of this. I would expect you did. You got to see a little bit of software. got to hear a little bit about SAP, a lot about Emergis, what we can offer you, and the time frames we can actually offer it in. So we are do have a distinct value in the marketplace, and we do have competitors in the marketplace, but they're not competing at the same level we are right now. So we're ahead of the curve and want to stay there, and your help will allow us to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Mark. So we'll go ahead and conclude today's presentations. You'll get a quick poll on today's event, so please help us fill that out in order to improve on our efforts. And thank you all for attending today's session. Thank you, Mark, and hope you'll have a great rest of the week.
Thank you very much. Bye.